This is iRacing.
It is the last of the Sprint and Master races today in the GT Open, brought to you with the SimRacing Republic. That will mean that 6 championships will need to be decided today. But critically, for the overall championships, it is moving day here at Sebring. It is one of those days where the top drivers look to position themselves for the final round at Silverstone and understand that it is this running that has got to get them to the level and limit that they know. Welcome on a fabled 12-hour weekend of Sebring, here to the virtual Sebring International Raceway, and coverage here on the Global SimRacing Channel. My name's Shakespeare, and alongside with me for today's action is Joseph Black. Christian Deploy is in the director's chair, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But what to say about a circuit that dominates the month of March? Sebring is home for many an endurance series around this time of year. Take a little look at what makes this circuit such an icon for an entire 31 days with your GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Sebring International Raceway. Home to the 12 Hours of Sebring, one of the most grueling tests in endurance racing, this is a track which has earned a fearsome reputation among drivers. The circuit itself is located on the southeastern edge of the city of Sebring, Florida, and was built out of Hendricks Army Airfield shortly after World War II. 3 layouts are currently in use, ranging from 1.7 to 3.7 miles in length. The longest course, which is perhaps the most well-known with it being the one used for the famed endurance race, shockingly still contains portions of the original airfield surface. It's this aspect which has become a signature feature of the track, making it extremely bumpy for racing. Sunset Bend in particular nearly shakes cars apart while they attempt to navigate the high-speed 180-degree corner. As you'd expect for the side of an airfield, there's nearly no elevation change over the course of a lap, but many of the curves are dramatically tall and unforgiving, daring drivers to glance them yet not hit them directly. Thankfully, places to pass are plentiful, including spots like the Hairpin and Cunningham. However, the many fast, sweeping turns creates a dilemma for car setup, since a vehicle that's made too stiff could wind up bottoming out on the onerous bumps. In the end, if you have the wherewithal to withstand the track's rough nature, you're likely to fare well. And since Florida fans almost always show up in huge numbers to witness this test of car and driver, you'll have plenty to impress at this legendary North American road course.
A Sebring circuit, Joseph, that has seen it all, has done it all, and right now will be on the back of the heels of what was a successful 12-hour earlier on today, or yesterday, but today it's the turn of GT Open, and it is going to be huge for opportunities in a sprint and master format.
Certainly is. It is one of the most open circuits that we can get for ourselves. In terms of overtaking opportunities, there's a lot of runoff, so they get the chance to do a lot of fighting side by side. 17 corners, just a touch over 6 kilometers of racing, and this should be a prime overtaking circuit, and it's just touched over 75 years of being open, so it's an iconic year for them, and we're going to hope to live up to the racing that we saw yesterday.
I always love a circuit that's opened up on December 31st. It reminds me of my birthday out there as we get ourselves set then for action. Let's talk championships though, and we'll talk only overall here at this moment. Pro is one of, if not the most interesting championship walking in. It was a horror round for Oye Hugo last time out at Road Atlanta. So Ryan van der Grijp moves to a 5-point championship lead with Noor Zwaggy, ever consistent, just circling the Sharks at the moment at 7 points adrift. Trevor Vavrovsky is in 4th with Frank Cook in 5th. That will then lead Alessandro Torchio in 6th, and Corbin Lenaway, who was a non-starter last month, he's there in 7th. Michele Velazzi at 99 points back is 8th. And he's in a massive scrap right now with Camden Craft and Ryan Fuqua here at both 100 points adrift. Over to Joseph now, who's got his eyes on overall going on in the Pro-Ams.
Yeah, the Pro-Ams slightly less close than the overalls, as Johan Neshev is on 298, over 100 ahead of Sven Beber in that second spot. Mika Hoekstra is in 3rd, and Dan van Zutphen holds in 4th place. Then it's pretty close between those drivers. It's going to be 17 even points between 4th and 7th. Michael Teichmann, Sven Landgraf and Niels Buckridge are in that little group. Miroslav Sotorov not too far off, just 17 points off them, and 11 points ahead of Stefan Jones and Roberto Stefano Kovac that round out the top 10.
It's worth noting, Johan Neshev cannot afford to cede 28 points to Sven Beber today if he wants to wrap up the title one round early in Pro-Am. Let's go over then to what is going on in the Am category then in terms of the overall, and it is still a close-fought battle, but it's between two teammates, Luke Slotes and Ivan Loskotov, just 20 points between them here today. Kevin Maillard is going to need the round of his life today if he is wanting to get closer to Slotes and Loskotov to have a fighting chance going over to Silverstone out there. And I think that is going to be where the critical factor is going to be had. Gareth McRae currently in 4th. I will correct myself. It is 100 points at the final round of the championship. So it's 3 points, the difference there that needs to be held as a margin by Johan Neshev. Gareth McRae is 4th ahead of Marcel Nürnberg, and Richie Chauhan, who is looking like he's got a lot of pace today. He's down at the bottom, but I don't think he'll be there for too much longer. Over to Joseph then, who's keeping an eye out on what's going on in the team standings then in Pro.
Yeah, and at the moment, it will be Maniti Racing Pro just the 5 points ahead of the 07 Racing team in 2nd. Then, big gap, 110 between Maniti Racing Pro and Enesis Esports in 3rd. Impact Sim Sport find themselves in 4th, and Hyperion are in 5th. And then GT Dynamics are the last team within 200 points of the leaders. Absolute Motorsport A-Slith will be in 7th, 202 off. Then Ice Storm Velocity, Def Sim Racing Pro and Lion GP round out the top 10. But keep an eye on 9th and 10th today. 1 point splitting the two.
Yeah, just the one championship point can be so easily won and lost over the run. In Pro-Am, it is negative delta by SimGear.it, a commanding 70-point margin over NJB Performance. So that is going to be huge. Manatee Racing Pro-Am are 3rd in a big Titanic scrap between Absolute Motorsport A-Slith Pro-Am and Evolution Sim Sport Red. Firefly E-Racing are 6th with Backmarker Racing Green 7th. Lion GP Academy in 8th. And then that leads to Blue Chip Racing and CSA rounding out your top 10 in order. And we'll quickly flick over the AM category because there aren't many teams here to deal with. Sim Esports Racing have pretty much clinched the title over Impact Sim Sport AM, and Firefly E-Racing AM, they're 383 points adrift. That's how it all stacks up then going into today. But if you've not been here and you haven't seen what these races are like, Joseph, run them through. What do they got to deal with today in this first run?
Well, we've got the sprint to kick us off. 25 minutes of racing in, of course, the GT3 cars. It's the 5th of 6 rounds this season, so if you haven't seen any, where have you been? But now you're here, you can keep an eye on the last 2 rounds of the year. Open setups, so they can tweak it however they like, and we have a custom balance of performance to make things all the more interesting indeed. And well, of course, that will be adjusted race by race, and we'll get the chance to see who is going to be stacking up where in terms of that. As well, it can shake up the order just a bit.
It can. We'll take a look then at your balance of performance, which is brought to you by TFR Lab. Out there, the Acura currently is there with everyone at 47% fuel. The ballast levels, you can see in a lot more of a power reduction for the Mercedes AMG Evo. That's going to be critical to note here. We've gone through a brand new build, so there are going to be a lot of changes. It looks like the Mustang taking, or Mustang it seems to be today, taking a big amount of ballast, 10 kilograms, 8 on the Lamborghini Huracan, and 6 for the Aston Martin and the Chevrolet. But we are gridded up at the moment, so let's run down through where everyone is going to be stacking up today. And Ryan van der Rijp, your overall championship leader, is on the pole position with Michele Velazzi alongside for company freight. Cook is third with Oye Hugo fourth. Ryan Fuqua will line up, quote, sixth on the grid. And Norzwagi, who is currently by countback leader of the Pro Sprint Championship, he'll have it all to do from sixth in class. Trevor Vavrosky in seventh in class. Davide Pezzi, who's the other driver, tied eighth in class, with Camden Craft starting 11th today, and 12th for Antti Terho for Death Sim Racing. We will then look over down the order and see Alessandro Torchio in 15th, Nick Davis in 16th, Dylan Platt, Corbin Lenaway then unable to get a great time in, as well as Stein Handgraf, who was so dominating over at Road Atlanta, and Marcelo Caserta there in 13th. Joseph Black going through the Pro-Ams.
Yeah, and of course they are going to be in amongst the pro field, and well, it'll be Johan Neshev who will be 5th place overall. Stefan Jones will qualify 13th, second in class, and Marvin Barr and Miroslav Sotorov make up 18th and 20th. Then you've got row 11 of the field, Dan Van Zutphen and Michael Teichmann, and then row number 13, which will be Thomas Seyfarth and Daniel Dorsched as well. Mika Hoxter and Roberto Stefano Kovac are going to be in 27th and 28th respectively, and then you've got Julian Dimitrov, Calamar Jones and Wesley Lewin to round out that group of drivers.
Yeah, and we'll also talk about the AMs out there as well on the starting grid, because Richie Chauhan has put himself up in 8th place. What an effort from him. Only 4 today. Luke Sloat there in 14th, 23rd for Ivan Loskatov, and a non-start then for Kevin Maillard as far as qualifying goes. So ultimately had to serve a qualifying ban, so we'll have it all to do from the back. We'll be relying on mistakes from drivers out there. So as far as the championships will look, Johan Neshev will be happy in Pro-Am for Sprint. He's 14 points clear of Dan Van Zutphen in that regard, so Dan has to outscore by at least 15 points, which will mean a top 9 today is going to be enough for him. In AM, Slurts and Maillard, they're split by 1 point. Loskatov is 8 points back. And so as far as that goes, it's looking more likely that Luke Sloats has got a great position. Pro can go any one of 12 ways. Van der Rijp is third in that championship at 2 points back of Norzwagi and Davide Pezzi, with advantage over the green flag in the air, and 25 minutes of this sprint starts immediately. They fan out 3, almost 4 wide. Blocks being thrown everywhere as they try and find a lane here into turn number 1. Oh, it's a turn! Oh, bang! Straight across. It's Neshev who's caught out. Chauhan as well is in it on top of Oye Hugo. 3 very key factors in this sprint race, all in trouble. Spinner at turn 3 as well. It's a disastrous start to racing. Looks like we've got Nick Davis who's around. Bang, there's more contact there too for Ryan Fuqua, and rightly so, a yellow flag.
Absolutely ridiculous start to this race as, well, they head through the first corner and the safety car is called out as, well, that was just cars flying absolutely everywhere. We've had 2 meatballs, Richie Chauhan and Johan Neshev, who are both in pit road, but very unfortunate for some of those race starts, and that is exactly what we would have wanted to see in terms of drama in the first couple of corners, although unfortunate for the drivers involved.
Well, you have to say they were going so aggressive at the start of this race. I think we might be able to catch a GSRC replay soon on exactly how that came about. So you can see they're all moving over everywhere, and Neshev just gets the tag from behind from one of the 07 cars out there. It might have even been Norzwagi there, who is one of the leaders of the Sprint Championship. So if he does get a penalty for that, which I think he might do, as he was a little too late on the brakes there to go into that opening corner, he's now a lot of risk here of dropping it. Van der Rijp won't really mind too much. He knows he's got a big margin, and he's also thinking about the overall championship, with Oye Hugo just 5 points back of him then in the overall, in the barriers on the opening corner of the race. That would be, for Manatee, a dream start. Here's a look at Ryan Fuqua, who gets a hit from the other one of the 07 cars there, trying to jump up on through. That would have been Michele Velazzi. Sorry, that would have been Zwaggy again, I think, potentially there, in trouble then. So I think Zwaggy has realised that Christmas cards might be 9 months away, but he has certainly been involved in a lot of the start of this race, involved in the first and second incidents.
Yeah, and we will, of course, keep our eyes on the race control decisions as we go through this race. And, well, of course, nothing done yet, because they need to take their time to make those right decisions, but I'm sure there will be decisions as the safety car comes out of the pit lane. And, well, they've missed it. The top four leading the safety car, and so they are just going to be, hopefully, slotting in their places. Exactly.
Yeah, because if you go past the safety car and it is an iRacing official safety car rather than what we see with others out there, they do have to hold for it, or they will get hit with a penalty. Oh, and we've gone straight through everyone there. So pace car doesn't care if you are ethereal or fixed in a solid point in time. It will drive straight through you, phase through you, and continue. So this is going to shake things up here in terms of the Pro-Am overall, because assuming that you don't get a finish at 0 points, Daan van Zutphen here is in 4th position right now. That is 16 championship points, and if it were to stay like this, he would be the Pro-Am Sprint champion.
You know what we're going to have to rely on a lot today? We're going to have to rely on commentary box maths. So hopefully you're going to be a lot better at that one than I am, Jake. So hopefully we'll give the viewers at home and ourselves the opportunity to follow the championships as closely as we possibly can, as closely as they are now filtering through following the safety car. It's more or less another standing start because of how early on the problems happened for the drivers. This does mean that there's only 3 in GT3 AM, so it's a guaranteed podium for everyone that finishes, unless Chawan makes it back out of the pit lane and into the race session. But I think he's going to be, if he does come back into it, quite a bit down.
Luke Sloat is currently in control of the GT3 AMs at the moment, and so with Kevin Maillard in 3rd, all it would need to change that championship in regard is Maillard to get by Sloats, and he is currently about 8 seconds back down the line, so that's going to be really difficult. In GT3 Pro, Ryan van der Rijp will currently have the Sprint Championship locked up. Freek Koek would be his nearest challenger right now. He's down 7 on Ryan van der Rijp, so if they were to change positions out there, the gap would be 2 in favour of Ryan van der Rijp. If he were to fall back behind Michele Velazzi, for example, he would be on 18 championship points. It would then go to count back between them, and Ryan van der Rijp hasn't won a single sprint race this year, and so you will turn around and look over at Freek Koek. He would have the title on count back were he to go and make that happen here. This is just for the sprint standings, because we got 1 sprint, 1 master, and then of course over to Silverstone, 1 final enduro to go and talk with as well. So a lot to try and deal with at the moment, and you've also got to keep an eye on what happened at the beginning of the race, because I think that creates a critical factor of it. So this is Freek Koek's view. So you can see already moving over to defend, looks to try and come back the other way. There is a lot of movement out there, but there's the push through. Oh, look at the air that Neshev gets, and it's just a complete cannon fire as it goes across turn 1. Just takes 2 completely out the picture there in Oye Hugo and Richie Chawan.
Yeah, that's almost the worst type of incident, because the person that you might put at fault, completely not affected. 3 people completely just not necessarily unrelated, but all out of it, not through their own fault. So it's those incidents that you kind of feel are very, very bad for those drivers who are the ones involved. And, well, we will see where they end up stacking up. Of course, they will try to make their ways back into the race, but in the case of Neshev, he would already be 2 laps down, as would Richie Chowan, the 2 meatballs that came out straight away. This is Zwaggy's point of view in the 74 of the 07 Racing team, and he just went to the inside, and it was just a little bit earlier on the break, so a bit of miscommunication and a big, big shunt. And for the 45 that was just trying to follow through, that would have been a very scary moment. Ryan Fuqua, that would have been, but somehow managed to avoid all of that, it looked like.
Yeah, until he got to turn 3, where he got a tag on the back from Nur Zwaggy there. And in defence there, you could say, Joseph, of Nur Zwaggy, as the lights are off on top of the BMW M2 safety car, which means we will be going back to green flag running at the end of this lap. In the defence of Nur Zwaggy in that opening incident, Neshev is moving about a lot on that front straight.
Yeah, it did seem to be. It looked just as though it was one of those first lap incidents. I think that might be what it's chalked down to, because into the first corner, it's just always a little bit of drama, a little bit of chaos. You have to keep your eyes on so many drivers and so many things going on that it's very difficult to do so. Van der Gijp will take us back to racing with Kuk in behind, and of course all 3 classes will be back to racing very soon once that safety car peels off into the pit lane, and they will be absolutely itching to make it further than 1 corner without a problem.
Well, Nur Zwaggy's got damage on the front right, so he's going to be a little bit wounded out there. Vavrovsky is 5th. Davide Pezzi is going to be a critical factor for Absolute Motorsport Acelith in the Corvette. He's 6th, and remember, he comes into today 2nd in the championship for Sprint Pro. Tied on points. On countback, he loses out to Nur Zwaggy's 2 second places he's had. There's a look at the stone-faced Ryan van der Gijp, who is looking to just set himself up. He's got his own Dutch teammate there behind him in Freight Cook, but critically, the 207 cars then looking to try and set themselves ready here at Sebring along the Ullman Straight. They will go desperate for tyre temperature because they've only taken about 3 corners in anger out there on track, and they're going to look to get themselves a good run. Stefan Jones, who leads the AM category right now over Miroslav Sotorov. Sotorov with an outside shot as well. He'll need to outscore Dan van Zutphen here, and by what is 8 points, and Neshev by 22. He will need a win today in the AM category and hope for results elsewhere to go his way, which he's currently got as things currently stand. So for the moment, Van der Gijp will have control. The pace car through Sunset Bend will pull over to the right-hand side. He will have to wait for the green flag to fly before he can go and attack in anger, and he is off and away. Great start by Freight Cook. He gets a good launch, and now Vavrovsky there, Zwaggy having to defend immediately then down the line as they will go into turn number 1 once again, and it's a lot easier this time as they go on through. Petsy runs a little bit wide. Camden Craft and Stefan Jones going side by side, but for the moment, a cleaner start as they run into turn number 3.
Absolutely, they all kept in formation, and well, the 2 drivers out of formation, Vavrovsky and Petsy, are going to be alongside each other, and still were alongside each other on the exit, but Vavrovsky just managed to get the exit and hold his position ahead. How soon do they notice the damage on the 74 and really try and pin the tail on the donkey, make the move stick? Not quite yet. Further down in the Pro-Am class, Dan van Zutphen getting close to the side of Thomas Seyfarth for that 4th place, and Dan in the end holding on to it, but Marvin Burr in the background trying to seek an opportunity around the outside. Bit of dust. That's the car going backwards, and that is not what you'd expect to be seeing. I believe that's Stefan Jones. Indeed it is, in the back marker racing green car going around.
He got a tag there through the second part of Fangio from Alessandro Torchio. He was trying to do everything, was Jones, to hold himself steady. He almost took Miroslav Sotorov with him as he went through, and Sotorov could have ill-avoided that. It now puts Dan van Zutphen up to 3rd. Sotorov now leads, which will put him on maximum points and ahead of Johan Neshev, but he needs 8 over Dan van Zutphen. With Dan in 3rd, he'll only get 7 points. So for the moment, Dan is clear. He would take Pro-Am Sprint honours by 1.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be very, very tight indeed. And of course, don't forget, this isn't even the last round. This is going to be a very, very good championship to keep an eye out on. All of them are, as we're going to get another replay in the top right of your screens of exactly what happened to Stefan Jones. And yeah, there we go. Just, you know, as you say, a tag, and just came across the racing line. In the end, the avoiding action he took sort of sacrificed himself for the sake of other drivers, so pretty sporting if he meant to do that.
Petsy and Swaggy, who came into today in sprint honours, tied on points, find themselves together on the road, but a little down the orders. Swaggy damaged, Petsy needing to get then the Corvette moving in the right direction. That's wide there through turn 5, and he just gets the run and balk then, heading over through the Gurney Bend and towards the hotel hairpin. The 07 Mustang is able to hold steady, but that sleek Corvette lifts out of it and isn't going to find any chance of a move. Holding the line quite nicely and continuing on with the way that this race needs to be run. At this moment in time, already half of the time has put itself on the board. We've only raced, I think, 2 laps in anger out there at this moment in time. So Petsy holding his ground well, but knowing they've got to be aggressive. Here's Loskatov now, who is 9 points back on Luke Slopes. He's now got himself a fight with Thomas Safer, and there is Luke Slopes, his teammate, just in front. There's the carrot on the stick.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's going to be very, very tempting to make the move. Of course, as you say, we are flying through this race, and it's going by quicker than any of the drivers will be imagining. So I think soon they will be getting a little bit more aggressive. At the moment, they're trying to sit in and get a bit more comfortable, but later on, of course, they'll be trying to push forward. Dan Van Zutphen getting closer to Teichmann for second place in the GT3 Pro-Am standings. This is for second place in the AM standings, and Loskatov just holding station at the moment in behind Schlutz. This is Davide Petsy. This is in the pro standings, and it's 4P5, just behind Zwaggy and just ahead of Camden Craft in behind. And just interested in the move.
He's interested, but it's just that, an interest. He's not quite found the way to get it done. Camden Craft's going to want to get himself in and involved at the moment, and so too, by the way, is Dan Van Zutphen up against Michael Teichmann. So you've got to keep an eye out on Michael, is what he's doing, and there's a lunge now as we go, as they need to look here top right. That is Marvin Bear, and that is, believe it or not, Dan's own teammate taking him out of sprint title position right now. So they're going to have to get a word at Manatee. Marvin, you're going to have to give it back.
Absolutely. This is where the teamwork needs to come into play. Although at the moment, Marvin not sacrificing the position as we get another replay of that move, and just it looked as though Dan was not expecting Marvin to go for it anytime soon, but then Marvin, just desperate to make his way through, pushed his way to the inside. Dan gave him space, and the two have swapped. Maybe Marvin feels as though he's got more of a chance to overtake Teichmann, but either way it's a risk.
Teichmann, of course, a very, very impressive driver in his own right. He has managed drivers like Moritz Löchner, for example, one of the great sim racing drivers that has come out of Germany, as we focus still with Petsy and Kraft and Corbin Lenaway, who is in here, who at the start of the season was absolutely lightning quick. There is no argument at the front of the field. That's just the level of pace. Here comes Corbin Lenaway, trying to get that Aston Martin vantage to respond in a straight line, but the McLaren seemingly having enough for it then, rushing through into Sunset Bend, the corner of 1004 line, so much more shallow but more bumpy. It is on that inside on the old school concrete that's not been repaved since 1950, and ultimately Corbin Lenaway has to yield and say, I'll go for it at another time with 9 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, and there is still time in this race for these drivers to make those moves, as Camden Craft all under pressure right now, and the inside line does open up. There is a move, there is a little bit of contact, and they will remain alongside, but in the end it will be Corbin Lenaway to make the way through, but a little bit of a bump from the two. Camden Craft will see that this is the way that Lenaway wants to race, and I think he might give him a taste of his own medicine.
It was forceful, but it needed to be forceful out there, and they'll continue all the way down to the hotel hairpin here. Lenaway on the inside. Kraft, oh, he's going to turn across the nose, and both of them are going to take themselves out of position there. So Camden Kraft loses out. Lenaway will drop behind Platt, Sotorov, Terho, and Tokyo. Camden Kraft is going to be very upset because it's the second time today he's been hung on the outside coming out of the hotel hairpin, and it has been trouble. Now you look here at Michael Teichmann and two back in the line, because suddenly the two AM drivers fighting out there together. So this is going to be critical here in the run with Loskotov and also Sloats. Let's take a look at what happened here, top right of your screen.
Yeah, just having a look at the moment, and it was just one driver on the inside and then one driver even more on the inside, as you could see in the foreground. The dust kicked up from the incident, and that is not where they would have wanted to go. They wouldn't have wanted to go off at all with 7 minutes left in the heat, but this is going to be very, very tight. This is the leader in your AM class, and this is also second place. Loskotov just chasing him behind.
Yeah, I just noticed turn 3, Bear got through on Teichmann, and as Teichmann ran wide at 3, it was Dan van Zutphen who jumped back down the inside. He's back in position for his championship. Then with that move, Danny Dorscheid then holding himself a Firefly, and he looks around. Marcelo Caserta's trying to work her way through. You've got Roberto Kovac a little bit further back then watching. This is Mika Herkstra trying to get in. Cook with the fastest lap then with 7 minutes to go here in this race. They're on the 201s at this point in time. They were doing 158s, believe it or not, in qualifying for the Sebring 12-hour, but Caserta happy to stay in line. Herkstra dispatched off.
Yeah, at the moment, that is the move, and Trevor Vavroshki's lost a couple of positions, and I think we're about to find out why. Just wide into the final corner and just keeping out of the wall, but in the end losing one position, and I think losing another one in the first corner as well. As when you can have that moment very wide, you can get very nervous, and you just feel as though you should just try and worry about yourself. You don't want to be finding yourself side by side with somebody else. You just want to be able to knuckle back down.
Yeah, and it's worth noting there's no Sven Beber here today, so his title aspirations are dashed, so it falls in Pro-Am overall to Mika Herkstra and what he's able to do out there against Johan Neshev, who won't score in this opening race, who will sacrifice at least 25 points, but with Herkstra a long way down the order as we focus on Dan van Zutphen, who's looking to be the beneficiary of the Pro-Am title here, with Sotorov in position to win the race, get maximum points. He would be 1 point shy, would Miroslav Sotorov at the moment, for negative delta by simgear.it. So you talk overall championship right now, Herkstra's position is actually really important here on how many points he can pull back.
Yeah, it certainly is. At the moment, it's just trying to damage limit as the two Maniti racing cars side by side down the straight. The two behind as well, Teichmann and Seyfarth, who had a look, but in the end, Seyfarth just tried to go the long way around and couldn't find his way through. Fastest lap in the GT3 Pros, a 58.7 from Velazzi in third spot. The top three covered by just over a second. Marvin Bear then looking for a move on Dan van Zutphen. He let his teammate back through, and I think that might be it for that second place, at least between the two teammates.
Yeah, so Dan gives himself security blanket then with that move. There's Herkstra in 9th place out there. Fourth scores 16, so then it's 15, 14, 13, 12. He'd take 11 points out of the likes of Johan Neshev. It would bring his gap down to 126 championship points. He's got to get it down under 100 in order to keep this one going to the final round of the season. So that is where we note where championships lie at the moment as far as overall goes. Keep an eye as well on Dan van Zutphen. He's fourth in that championship right now, and he is back what is 151. So he will take at the moment 20 of those back, so he'd be 131 back in the overall championship as it goes. So a lot still to deal with here with 4 minutes to go in this one, but it has been all calm at the front of the field. Ryan van der Rijp has kept his teammate Freek Koek basically at an arm's length. It's been very much watching, say for example, an old school Brian Habana in rugby.
Yeah, it doesn't really surprise me they haven't been fighting, because I think they would have been waiting for the end of the race. I think the drama is about to come between the top three. As I said, last lap it was Velazzi getting the fastest lap last time out, as further down the order Dylan Platt having a fight, and the two ahead, Antti Terho trying to find a way through on Alessandro Torchio, but that in the end was Dylan Platt through on the leader of the GT3 Pro-Am class, Miroslav Sotorov, and he will try and make his way back through down the straight, sitting in the slipstream. The negative delta at 182 can't quite get that momentum through, so will just settle himself in that position. But I do think there will be at least one move in the top three in the GT3 Pros, and I think it's going to have to fall down to Velazzi.
If Maillard wants anything to happen, if Loskotov wants anything to happen, they both are relying on Slotes being in trouble. Petsy has finally got the run here on Zwaggy, but Zwaggy's covering the inside. You've got Trevor Vavrovsky there in the AMG Mercedes. 3 cars, then from 3 teams, from 3 different drivers, looking to prove that they've all got it here, and there's enough room given on the exit. Then Trevor Vavrovsky's GT Dynamics number 3 out there gets the pass done. Petsy has to yield out there and fall back into line. He realizes he hasn't quite got it, and Trevor really wants to go through. Loskotov, now your leader in AM, with a lap and a half in trouble. Loskotov bang in the wall.
Yeah, Loskotov's lost it in second place in that field, and that has just handed that first place pretty much guaranteed to Schlotz in the lead of that class. But Ivan Loskotov, a rare mistake.
Well, it's rule 1 because his teammate has turned him, and there might be a penalty here for Luke Slotes after the race, and if that is the case, then Slotes might lose the championship here. The biggest beneficiaries will be Loskotov and Kevin Maillard out there. Chauhan, we know, is out, so he's not going to score. So if they rule that a time penalty or a points penalty, this is going to be a very interesting end to this race. Last lap about to start for your drivers. Antti Terho going to the outside. He's looking for a way to jump through and get by Alessandro Torchio. He's not going to get there. Dylan Platt now trying to be aggressive. Van der Wright starting the final lap then with a fastest lap to boot in the back pocket. This has been a very aggressive sprint race to finish off the sprint season out here in this championship, but it has been some wonderful action that we've been keeping our eyes on. Into 3, 4 and 5 here, this wonderful transferring section over to the mid sector of the lap. Good drive by Torchio. He's not going to be under threat from Antti Terho now under the Lexus signage here, and running along to this next section. Vavrovsky all over the back of Zwaggy, who holds his defense and holds it strong at the moment. He's doing everything he needs to on his marks, as he has got himself what he needs at the moment. Just calmness here. He's trying to do what he can. The damage from the opening corner has pretty much written off his sprint championship hopes at the moment. He is still very much in the pro overall standing conversation, but the driver he's trying to hunt down currently leads this race by 0.7 of a second, and he has looked absolutely faultless out there. He has looked like the best driver on pure pace all season. He just hasn't had the luck at every race this season to go his way, but late on in the season, you talk about making moves. He came in on the sprint at 2 points of a deficit with just some consistent finishes. This guy knows how to bounce back from adversity, and at the first chance, the last chance to go and keep himself out there on circuit and understanding what's going on, Ryan van der Rijp is going to find that everybody is in his back pocket here at Sebring. He'll round the final corner. The overall championship leader is going to be GT3 Pro Sprint champion with the win here at Sebring. Kirkuk second, Velazzi is going to be third. Sotorov is going to get the win today in GT3 AM, but he is going to find that he is going to be 3 points shy of Dan van Zutphen, who is sprint champion in GT3 AM's. Luke Slotes provisionally is GT3 AM Sprint champion, but Joseph, we will have to wait for the stewards because it has been noted.
We certainly will. All of the incidents throughout the course of the race have been noted, including 2 right at the very start of the race. But that was the sprint race that we were sort of hoping for, with all the drama and everything that we got to see. But Ryan van der Grijp, a very deserved victory.
Yeah, and a win that he'll be very happy with. In Pro, he wins by 8/10 over Freek Koek, with Michele Velazzi third in class. Norzwagi and Trevor Vavrovsky are fourth and fifth, with Davide Pezzi and Alessandro Torchio sixth and seventh. Antti Terho will finish off in eighth, with Dylan Platt ninth, and Corbin Lenaway rounding out your top 10 in class, as Stein Handgraaf would be 11th ahead of Marcelo Caserta. Nick Davis would be 18 seconds adrift. Oye Hugo really going to hurt then, all the way back in 14th in class, with Camden Craft and Ryan Fuqua making up the 16, all in GT3 Pro. Were able to finish. You couldn't say the same in GT3 Am here, Joseph.
No, he certainly couldn't. Miroslav Sotorov took the victory in that in the end, ahead of Dan van Zutphen, with Marvin Bear, his teammate, in third. Michael Teichmann came home in fourth, just ahead of Thomas Seyfarth, who tried to pressure him at the end of the race, didn't quite have enough. Daniel Dorscheit in sixth place, and Roberto Stefano Kovac and Yulian Dimitrov having an underrated battle in seventh and eighth, with Mika Hoekstra just off the back of them, and Callum Jones rounding out the top 10 in the GT3 Pro Am field. Wesley Lewin will be the final finisher there, with Stefan Jones and championship leader Johan Neshev missing out.
Yep, he will miss out then on the Pro-Am title with no points scored, and that is going to be a huge shame because he was dominating category. Luke Sloats provisionally is going to be your GT3 Am champion, but it will have to depend on whether there is a time penalty or not, because if he has any form of time penalty compared to Loskotov and to Maillard of 5 seconds or more, it will be Kevin Maillard who will become the sprint champion here for 2025-6 out here in the GT Open. So we will keep an eye out on the stewarding inquiries that have been going about then here today, and we will update you as and when we get that information. But it's not just one championship in GT Open. It is, in fact, more than that. We'll take a talk about the Sports Car Championship and what is coming up next.
Gervis, this is absolutely huge. Cannot script this right.
Straight down the inside.
Everyone into the corner. There's a bit of panel rubbing.
Right out, there's contact.
Sanchez Gonzalez is around.
Just getting word in terms of what has been going on in the Pro Championship, that from qualifying, that 8 drivers all got a 5-second time penalty for lining up before the checkered flag flew for the class ahead. So that's Ryan van der Grijp, Freek Koek, Davide Pezzi, Trevor Vavrovsky, Nick Davis, Michele Velazzi, Norzwagi, and Antti Terho, all with a 5-second time penalty. That won't change anything. There is as well a 10-second stop and hold, which will be administered to Norzwagi for the incident that had happened on the opening lap. So a lot to get through. But Joseph, now we are starting to turn our attention from sprint to master. The difference of 25 minutes compared to an hour and 5 minutes. It's a completely different ballgame.
It's one of the hardest mentality shifts that you will have to do in racing, going straight from a sprint race over to a race where you have to completely change your approach. And I think the drivers are going to have a struggle at the start to make that change. Of course, if it was tomorrow, then they would have the chance to reset and go again, but it's not. There's about 7 minutes of difference between the two. It's however long they take to set everything up, and then they're going once again. So it is one of the most difficult shifts that you can make in sim racing, but we have some of the most talented drivers.
Yeah, and those talented drivers, because we have seen so many over the course of both GT Open and, of course, the Sports Car Championship, which was the inaugural championship of the SimRacing Republic. A third championship will be on the line in 2026/2027. Take a look. Gotta love a good track sport series there, GT4s, and also the like there of those Porsche 992.2s, which were new at the last build, not this build, the last build on the iRacing service. That is going to be a fun championship to keep an eye out on. Now, Joseph, we talked about it in our pre-show, but let's go back to the balance of performance, because trying to understand what you need out of a balance of performance, you often say that there are certain cars that form the baseline for everything else. In this series, we do have that baseline. It's the Ferrari 296 and the McLaren 720S. They are the two baseline cars out there that have next to no change to it. Everything else is changed to it. So power reduction, ballast, and fuel. And so getting a big balance of performance isn't always the greatest thing in the world, but sometimes a car like, say, for example, the Ford Mustang often gets that big hit because it is one of the more popular cars that you find.
Certainly does, and it narrows down the field. And as we saw in that first race, of course, and as we've seen across the whole season as well, it is important to have that balance of performance to have an incredible race. And, well, it's not necessarily vital, but once you can have a good balance of performance, it can make for a very, very good race indeed. For example, that Mercedes would absolutely fly away in a straight line, but we've reduced that power, so it can't quite do the same thing. The Ford Mustang, big nerfs to it, as well, those gamers will understand. Ballast has gone 10 kilograms, that's the most of all, and then of course the joint second most power reduction. So that's one of the cars that they felt as though needed a big nerf. And well, as you say, we've got those baselines of the McLaren and the Ferrari that we're just trying to work around. Some drivers might even take, and some teams might even take those cars knowing that they might be more consistent all season.
Let's take a live look now over to race control just to see how busy everything is at the moment. And you can see out there, you've got 5 different screens that are out there, which includes our lovely broadcast there at the top. As you see, you've got the decision sheet that's over on the right-hand side. You've got a decision sheet on the left-hand side. You've got then the Discord log communications there in the middle on the vertical screen. This is as busy of a time that you can possibly have it.
Certainly is, and big respect to all of the stewards that will make this race tick and that will make everything tick. Just waiting to see if he notices that we've managed to pull him up on the broadcast. I'm sure he will after the race, but he's making some big decisions here that can have big effects on the way that this race is going to go and the way that this season is going to go, as well, more penalties flying in now, so it's the crucial time really for them, as well, of course this is where they're making those decisions that will win or lose a championship.
Absolutely, and we need to now start thinking about the Master Championships, which are on the line. In terms of Pro-Am, that's already been decided. That was decided at Road Atlanta, where Johan Neshev is in control and cannot lose the Masters Championship in Pro-Am, sorry. So also, you look around at Pro Master, Ryan van der Grijp has, I would say, 9 fingers on the Pro Master Championship because he's got a 44-point gap over Oye Hugo, a 45-point gap over Freight Cook, and a 48-point gap over Norswaggy. Effectively, one of those three drivers has to win, and Ryan van der Grijp has to retire from the race, and that's the only way that the Pro Master Championship will change hands. And Master is where it's going to get interesting because Sloats versus Maillard is an 8-point gap and Loskotov is 22 points adrift of that. So that's how the top three look. It's 50 points for a win in that regard. So Loskotov's got a lot to do. Maillard will understand that this will be a race that will show a lot out there. So ultimately, there's going to be a lot to run through. The grid, though, for this, keep this in mind, is exactly the same as your results that you saw from the sprint. So the Masters field start will be as follows. Ryan van der Grijp will be at the front with Freight Cook alongside. Michele Velazzi will be in third with Norswaggy fourth, Trevor Varosky fifth, and Davide Pezzi in sixth position. It will then be Alessandro Torchio going from 7th with Antti Terho 8th, Dylan Platt and Corbin Lenaway rounding out the top 10. The top 10 all pros out there as they start. Stein Handgraaf will be the next pro all the way back in 16th with Marcelo Caserta, Nick Davis. Oye Hugo will have to go from 26th out there through the field as Camden Craft starts 28th and Ryan Fuqua in 29th. Over to Joseph Black on GT3 Pro-Am.
Yeah, and it will be the Pro-Am standings that will be littered in amongst, and it will be 11th and 12th on the grid for Miroslav Sotorov and Dan van Zutphen. Marvin Bear and Michael Teichmann will be 13th and 14th, and Thomas Seyfarth will make it 5 GT3 Pro-Ams in a row. Daniel Dorscheit will be in 18th spot, and Roberto Stefano Kovac and Julian Dimitrov will make up the 11th row of the field, with Mika Hoekstra in 23rd and Callum Jones in 27th in terms of the GT3 Pro-Ams. And then it will be Wesley Lewin, Stefan Jones and Johan Neshev will be starting from 33rd.
A long way back for Johan here to go and recover through, but he knows that that championship is sorted. He'll be focusing on pro. Luke Sloat will be in charge in 20th position. Ivan Loskotov will start 24th. Kevin Maillard will be 25th. And Richie Chauhan will have to go from 32nd position on the grid then to try and get through. But he has shown he's got the best pace of anyone in the AM category today, so he could be the cat amongst the pigeons here today for racing action. An hour and 5, 47% of a tank, which means that we're probably in two-stop territory for this race, unless you are heavily aggressive on your ability to fuel save. The BMW, as we take a look at this pancake flat former airfield base here in Florida, right in the middle of Florida. We're about 2 hours out from Daytona, an hour and a half away from Miami. Here at Sebring, this is a wonderful circuit of racing that you can keep seeing over and over and over again. Van der Grijp, just like in the sprint, will have control of the field. He'll wait for the drop of the green flag, and let's get an hour and 5 on the clock because your master race has started off 4 wide. It will be for third as they will look towards turn number 1 for Vrosky, getting aggro down the inside. Nowhere for Petsy to go on the outside. He invites a bit of contact. No dramas, they go through 3 wide. They will be into turn number 3 on track with Platt there, and in the middle trying to fight through with Torchio as well is Antti Terho. They'll find themselves into line, and now they've got to just try and settle down and find rhythm early.
They certainly do. This is the difference between the endurance race and the sprint race they had earlier on. They're going to try and take the opportunity to settle into the race a lot earlier. Nozuagi on the inside of Velazzi and trying to make his way through. Platt trying to seek an opportunity on the inside line as well. Can't quite do so, but will pull alongside and will do enough to remain alongside the car in front, as well as Davide Pezzi trying to seek an opportunity. There's lots of opportunities on this first lap, and well, GT3 Pro-Am field has seen that. Dan van Zutphen has dropped 2 places. Sotorov and Bear have dropped down, and Teichmann has taken the lead.
Michael Teichmann has had a very, very fast start to this race. He's got himself to position. He's on the back of Stein Handgraaf at this moment. Maillard then losing a place as well to Richie Chauhan back there in AM. So there are changes going about everywhere in this field on the launch. There is Luke Sloats, who leads this field right now with his teammate there, and the very lightning fast Oye Hugo looking to jump through, gain places early there in his Aston Martin Vantage for Enosis Esports. So he's looking around as the Andorran. Over at Sloats, Thomas Seyfarth, Nick Davis. This is a huge damage limitation for Oye Hugo's championship. He's already given away 25 points here today. He's now down 30.
Certainly is. Does not want to lose any more time, any more positions, anything like that. And so he will try to just make it to the end. It's of course a race and a championship of attrition, and he's going to try and extend at least this race all the way to the very end. Bear, Sotorov and Teichmann split by not much. Dan van Zutphen as well off the back of this group, not far off either, and a potential move further up the order. Terho and Dylan Platt, I believe they may well have made contact.
Yep, so Platt maybe is the one on the wrong side of it as they all jumped in. So wide went Antti Terho through turn number one. In fact, I think it was Terho and Corbin Lenaway who came together and made the contact. We'll take a look. So this is Corbin Lenaway for Impact Sim Sport down the inside. Oh, it's not on. That's not a move that's on. You can't just chuck it down the inside and expect the car to move over for you. This isn't Formula Racing.
Certainly isn't, and it's very much more managed. You have to be more managed in this racing. Dylan Platt at the moment running a little bit wide. Marvin Baird just behind them, seeking a move on Miroslav Sotorov. So a couple of moves, and that's a car off. That will be Marvin Baird, who's gone off in the background. Was that contact or was that a pure mistake? Surely that was contact that's caused a big bit of damage on the car, and Yulian Dimitrov has dropped down as well.
Yeah, well, Dimitrov's caught Marvin Baird, who had spun around back onto circuit. There was a massive shunt between them. And so for Marvin Baird, it's a question of can he get going? He's towed the car back to pit. And I wonder whether they should have thrown a safety car for that, because I think that would have been an illegal tow there for Marvin Baird, and they would have had to have thrown something out for him. So I think that's a really tough position to go and look at. We'll get a replay of this then as they will start working through and saying the first 5 minutes have had a lot. Oye Hugo, though, just before we do, trying to sneak around the outside of Thomas Seyfarth by the looks of things there. Sorry, no, it's Danny Dorscheid. He has done. Neshev trying to make moves as well. But let's take a look at that replay then and see exactly how this one all came about. So he's on the outside then. He goes through Collier corner and, oh, he just catches a wiggle as he goes through. So easily done. And he hits the brake. Oh, you're a passenger at that point, Joe.
You certainly are, and that is exactly what we saw at the start of the sprint race, where there was just lots of passengers in the moves, including the driver that had the contact themselves. That was, of course, Johan Neshev, who ended up going airborne. He was a passenger in a plane as they went over, and thankfully that one slightly less dramatic. So there's damage, but it's not too bad for Dimitrov. He's got the meatball, so he's going to try and fix himself. And there's an onboard of said Dimitrov, and you can get a view of what happened in the incident. Yeah, absolutely nothing he could have really done, and that looks like it might be a broken suspension.
It very much would have been. The front would have caved in from it, and word from race control, that is no safety car because it was very close to one of the marshal posts out there. So effectively in fantasy land, you could wheel that car behind the marshal post and get that cleared before all the cars got back around again. That's why that's not a safety car out there, and why we've seen other incidents that have been by comparison. So Von der Rijp, your overall leader, Cook second, third is Trevor Vorosky. Our focus is on the lead in Pro-Am right now, where Miroslav Sotorov is trying to stay with Michael Teichmann, Dylan Platt in the middle, effectively fending there for Lion GP as a way to just keep this one on the honest at the moment. So Zutphen here is watching from third position, and he will realise right now that he has got a lot to do. There is a lot noted here with Richie Chauhan, with Corbin Lenaway. Those incidents have had a little bit of a look at it at the moment, so there is still a lot of everything that will need to be dealt with throughout with the race control, and Dan van Zutphen here has got the run around the outside, and he has gone and made the move. Swaggy's penalty responsibility, remember, includes race 1. He's just been handed 15 seconds of a stop and hold penalty. That's disaster for his overall championship hopes.
Yeah, certainly is very, very disappointing indeed. But that is just, it's one of those things. You have the moment and then you realise as soon after how big that could really be for yourself. As well, there is a couple of moves going on. There is Norzwagi dropping down a position to Petsy, and maybe, just maybe, seeking a move on the outside line into the next braking zone. Can't quite do so, and so will drop down a position. Velazzi has had the door open for him, and he's gone through on his teammate.
Yeah, it's a nice pass. It is a comfortable move. And I tell you who is moving into position in the championship slowly but surely. It'll be the 2 of Trevor Vavrovsky, or sorry, the 3 of Trevor Vavrovsky, and then Freyt Cook in the number 79. Those 2 are putting themselves into title contention against Ryan van der Grijp at the moment. So they'll look at that as important. Vavrovsky is there in 3rd position right now. He is walked into today 4th in the championship, down 24. Oh, background there, and that's trouble. That's Tokyo.
Certainly is a moment around the corner for Tokyo, and he's instantly back into the pit lane. So for the 07 team, it is not going the way they would have liked it. Hugo on the inside of Caserta and trying to make the move, and has done so, just holding it to the inside. In the meantime, as Ryan van der Grijp gets the fastest lap of the race, Tokyo becomes the latest of the Pro Class to have a problem, and in fact the first of the Pro Class in this race to have a problem.
And you'd argue as well that where he was stuck on the outside like that, that should have also been a safety car thrown for it, because look, here's Tokyo, spins around, gets a bit of a tag there with Corbin Lenaway on the exit, and then he's stuck on the outside. I wonder whether he beached himself or he didn't have any room. There was a tag from someone, and basically he couldn't quite get himself going. So now as they go, Stefan Jones will also now get himself a drive-through penalty. That is for start infringement out there, so the penalties are now being administered. Pit window, by the way, has opened out there. It opens at 5 minutes. You cannot serve one of your mandatory pit stops until then. Oh, spin, bang, Camden Craft in the wall with Johan Neshev.
Yeah, Johan Neshev and Camden Craft, they just cannot avoid having problems today. And while Johan Neshev has been able to continue on, Craft certainly has not. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's damage on that car for Neshev, as Ryan Fuqua just holds the position at the moment. You can see the differences between those 2 cars. This will give us a good indication of whether there is indeed damage on the 181, who's made his way up from the very back of the field to 24th. There's yellow flags out on the circuit, and might that be, yeah, it is indeed, that's going to be the next safety car.
Yeah, so that's because of what happened there for Camden Craft and the hit into the barriers. We'll take a look at this one on replay. And Camden Craft had a bogey corner all night here, or all afternoon. It has been this one. So Neshev's down the inside. They leave the room. And that, I believe, would have been Luke Sloats, I think, who was there on the outside. It was either Sloats or Loskotov there, who was on that outside line, and there isn't really much more that can be said, except there is contact there. 3 into 2 doesn't work out. It was Luke Sloats, who, remember, was under investigation in the sprint race. Now is going to be under investigation with his run. He had a bit of contact in front, he did, from Richie Chowan, who had made the move. And as Sloats was trying to avoid, they all fall in the same line. And ultimately, I think that's on Johan Neshev there, who was just trying to drive basically through the Hyperion racing car in front of Camden Craft.
Yeah, and that will be something the stewards will certainly be taking a look at indeed. Sloats picked up a penalty in the sprint race, and he'll hope to avoid that in this race, but we will see what happens. Richard Chowan, we get on board of what happened, and well, he just took the inside line, a defensive manoeuvre, the 20 on the outside, just shocked, I think, the car in the middle, and then Johan Neshev was just a little bit slow to react.
And you need to be very much eyes on a swivel in scenarios like this. Craft in the pit and in trouble. And because you are under safety car conditions, Stefan Jones cannot serve his drive-through penalty, nor can Norswaggy serve his stop and hold. So they're going to have to be very alert to whether they can serve those within the laps required, or whether they will in fact get disqualified for it because the safety car got thrown out. That's one of the reasons why you look around at when you get assessed a penalty out there. Effectively, race control will clear the penalties, but then we'll re-administer them after the safety car to make sure that they get served in that regard. But it just goes to show you, it's one of the reasons why you go and take your penalty as and when you get it, because you don't know what's going to open up. If they had served their penalties immediately, they would be in a position where the safety car would have come out, and effectively they would have lost a lot less time compared to if they had if they'd stayed out like now, because now they'll still have to serve it, and with the field bunched up, they're going to drop back an abundance of places and time.
Yes, exactly. That's really, really going to cost them a lot of time. It's very, very unfortunate indeed, but it's a mistake of their own doing, and we'll see, of course, what will occur later on in this race, whether it is going to be a mistake that will define it, or whether it's just going to be a blip in their performance. As Ivan Loskotov, he's been elevated to the lead of the GT3 AM for the first time today, and he's going to now try and not lose this opportunity. Schlutz has had a couple of moments, but he has managed to remain relatively calm in that first spot. But now the opportunity for Loskotov at the top of that field has come, and he needs to make the most of it.
He does. He needs to make a huge opportunity now to jump through and gain his points. He walks in AM overall, does Ivan Loskotov, 20 behind Luke Sloats. So today for him, realising Sloats is under investigation for what happened in the sprint, he will look around and see that the gap he will try and pull on down. He's also looking for the AM Master crown out there. He's down by 22, and that is the difference, 22 points between being in first and being in fourth position. So at the moment, all four still running. Sloats is currently in third. Loskotov will take the championship if Kevin Maillard can find a way through and gain the pass to get by Luke Sloats. In comes Vavrovsky, I think, or is that Nick Davis here? It's one of the GT Dynamic cars that's down in the pits. It's Nick Davis in the number 2. It will also be Trevor Vavrovsky in. So GT Dynamics have a strategy. They pit under the safety car. They'll lose the track position, but that's one of their 2 stops out of the way.
Short-term pain for long-term gain. I'm surprised that we didn't see everybody flying into the pit lane. Of course, it would make it slightly more difficult to manage, but it'd make it a lot easier because you'll be further up the order. So it's all of these swings and roundabouts they're going to have to deal with, and at the moment they have committed. They've put their eggs in that basket, and they're hoping that it will pay off. And well, there is a couple of drivers in this field who will be hoping that it certainly does not pay off. It works in the adverse, but we will wait to see the conclusion of that. Of course, it's a lot longer race than the sprint, so this safety car period isn't going to derail these scenarios and isn't going to derail the racing too much. What it is going to do is it's going to bring it a lot closer, and in this early stage of the race, it's kind of changed all of the battles that had just about started to be defined.
Yeah, and critically here, there is a lot that has changed in terms of how everyone's looking around at race control, safety car procedures. Maximilian Fritz was announcing a little bit earlier on today that there's been a new feature added to the system that they use, which is iRace Control, which allows them to wave by what is known as trapped cars in between safety cars and the class leader. Now, they weren't able to use this feature before because they've got a GT3 AM and a Pro category. So because they're all in the same class, essentially, in GT3, you can't really split them up. But now that there's been added an option over this recent build here, Joseph, to effectively create your own classes, so you can have Pro drivers, Pro-Am drivers, Am drivers, now the system should effectively allow us to go a lot quicker under safety cars.
iRacing are really keen to keep me involved and keep me interested. I was interested already, but the updates over the last few weeks have really, really spiked an interest in all of this racing, even higher than it was before. So it's all the updates they're bringing. Everything seems to be a really, really good thing, and that is just one of those for this particular championship. Of course, there was a couple who were a lap down who are going to hope to be able to make their way back through, including Yulian Dimitrov, who's just come out of the lane.
Late call from the safety car, but they have now just put it down to 1 lap to green, which will mean we'll be back running here in this one. We've just hit with just under 48 minutes now to go in this race. A lot of your leaders haven't made the call to come down in. The only cars really that have decided to come in are the GT Dynamics cars, who are now down near the back of the field. Safety car now running through Sunset Bend, the corner of 1004 lines, and we will be finishing very close to sunset here around this Sebring circuit. Ryan van der Rijp, who has led every single lap today at Sebring, gets the launch off once again and knows that Freight Cook is his very good deputy just behind, but also a rival for championship positions. Corbin Lenaway doesn't get the greatest start in the world, and he'll make a lunge down the inside then on Norzwagi, who ends up not getting much drive out there in the Mustang. They'll fight side by side then as they will head over towards turn 3. Swaggy's trying to really fight for it. He's up on the curb and there's contact sliding across there as Stein Handhraff, who's going to be able to jump the corner, but ultimately he's going to have to take the slow down.
Yeah, certainly is. That's going to cost him a lot more than it's going to gain him. Very unfortunate. There's fights here. Dan van Zutphen under pressure from Dylan Platt, and more drivers looking to try and get involved. Oya Hugo on the inside trying to find his way through. Teichmann will take that position off of Handgraf just ahead of them. Dan van Zutphen's going to hold on to it, and Hugo is going to go through on Platt. They remain side by side. They remain locked in battle, do van Zutphen and Hugo. And in the end, somehow, Dan van Zutphen is able to hold on to the position. Hugo, though, still trying to seek an opportunity, still trying to craft a chance for himself. And this will continue on for a few more corners, I think, as Dylan Platt tries to get himself back involved. And off they go. Dan van Zutphen, Stein Handgraf, contact.
The Lion GP car has completely capitulated the rear suspension there. I don't think he's going to go very far. Also off is Mika Herkstra, which is big for the AM Championship, so I think they're able to drive away. I don't think Stein Handhraff is, though. That might be a safety car immediately afterwards there as that's gone through. So a dramatic restart then to this race as it's come along with a driver like Dan van Zutphen getting caught up in it. We focus on Corbin Lenaway for the moment with the AM leader right now, Michael Teichmann, behind him. So that's going to be pressure that is unwarranted in his regard. And what a run Oye Hugo is having. We talked about how he needed to recover, and he's doing a brilliant job. Full course yellow is going to be called instead. Oh, there's trouble under full course yellow. Bang! Into the wall. Marcelo Caserta and Dylan Platt.
Yeah, 2 in the foreground, 1 in the background as well. I think that's Wesley Lewin and Nick Davis both having problems. So 4 cars dropping down. Very, very unfortunate indeed. And in fact, they are going to go. That is Marcelo Caserta going to go in pit lane. And you can see all of the damage that has been taken off. That's because it's still spiking up from the circuit. And surely that full course yellow is going to be out for at least a little bit longer, if not a full course
it's a safety car. They called a full safety car for it because of the slowdown that we saw there. The massive accident along the main straight. They were slowing down for it. Massive reaction there that no one was really expecting. And ultimately, because of that, there's 2 separate incidents to deal with on circuit. It is now a full safety car period instead of just a full course yellow, which would have been used to maybe try and see whether they could get the car running again. It had to be done at this point. And surely now, with drivers in trouble, they will now look at this as the first time to really come in and set off the pit sequence out there. Track temperature is 27 degrees at the moment. There's no threat of rain over the course of this race, but there's a lot to look at here from what was a very hectic restart.
There is indeed a lot to look at. Let's have a look then. Marcelo Caserta in the 69 Absolute Motorsport Ace Lift. That's a sluggish start for the person in front of Caserta, and that is the reason there was that big contact, I believe. Who was that? That was right in front. Whoever it was, they had a sluggish start, and it cost time for the others. I think that was Platt, yeah.
So Platt here, Joseph, was slowing down for the full course yellow because they were under instruction on a 5-second count before the full course yellow would come down into play. And at that point, he slowed down a lot quicker than everyone else. And Caserta's just not seen it, and he's just gone careening into the back of Dylan Platt.
Yeah, Platt just... it's difficult because he was trying to obey the yellow flags, and sometimes, in this particular scenario, that's not helped him. So for Dylan Platt, very unfortunate. For everybody involved, very unfortunate, because it's just, once again, a miscommunication. That's what all of the incidents here today have been. They've all been miscommunications. And here's a replay of that second incident. Wesley Lewin on board.
Yeah, so Lewin, oh, he doesn't see it either. Bang. Marvin Bair's caught up in it as well. That's why we saw more in there. That Pirelli tyre is not going to be very helpful after a hit like that. So that's why we see more than that in the pit. So Wesley Lewin, another one of the drivers who is caught out with what has happened on the front stretch. Drivers just not prepared to slow down for a full course yellow. It was the first time we have seen a full course yellow all season long, and just looking in front as they slowed, Nick Davis effectively had to shoot the gap because you got Stefan Jones who had slowed down. Kevin Maillard was there trying to slow down. He's in the pits now. Davis is there. Then Lewin jumps in. So this is Nick Davis. Vavrovsky, that's key. He went to the right-hand side. What great avoidance by Trevor Vavrovsky in all of that. It was almost like he had a sixth sense.
Yeah, absolutely incredible from Vavrovsky there. The main driver to be able to avoid it, because everybody else just had a little bit of time. Vavrovsky, no time at all to react, but somehow managed to take his way past, and he will be counting his lucky stars.
He will be. And he will know that that could be the moment that keeps him in the championship there, because it could have very well have been day done. You don't get a fast repair in this series, so you have to repair all of the damage manually, and that can be sometimes up over hours if you're not careful with how heavy some of the hits can be to your cars. And there are even some cars out there on the service where if you damage the suspension too badly, it says there's nothing we can do about it. Your car is a write-off, and you will not be continuing on any further. So a chance to understand where everyone is right now. Ryan van der Grijp is currently in control of your field. Frank Cook second, Davide Pezzi in third. Velazzi fourth, Zwaggy, who will have a 15-second stop and hold when they get a bit of clean air to go and work with. He's there in fifth position with Lenaway in sixth. It's Hugo seventh in class, and keep an eye on him. Teichmann leads in GT3 Pro-Am ahead of Miroslav Sotorov and Dan van Zutphen. As far as Johan Neshev goes, he knows that he is doing just enough to keep himself in the chance for a championship to be confirmed at the moment. He needs 31 points over the likes of Dan van Zutphen, and that then, by comparison, would be a 7th place he would need to try and hold out there at this point. So he's still got a bit of work to do. He's in 6th, which is great, but he might be under the ire of the stewards, which is not great out there in terms of this run. In AM, Richie Chauhan now leads. So for Ivan Loskatov, if he wants the run of the championship at the moment, he is not going to get it because Luke Sloats is there in third. And with Kevin Maillard in the pits, any hope for that, it's all going the way of Sloats. Everybody now is thinking about jumping in for their first stop. A few stay out, which include Davide Pezzi for his first run, Corbin Lenaway, Michael Teichmann, the leader in AM, stays out, and Miroslav Sotorov with Richie Chauhan also stays out. Almost everybody else has made the call. This is the first time that we are going to get full pit stops, and you will cycle through the field and get that clearance. And you look at someone like Vavrovsky. Now, this is really critical here, because technically, he's just got 2 mandatory stops out of the way. In theory, he could go to the end And if it does become as caution-filled as it has been so far, he very well might.
He very well might, but it'll be a big, big struggle to keep his tyres to the end, to keep his car going to the end. And if he does so, it will be an absolutely incredible achievement, all things considered. It's an incredible achievement, anybody, to be able to drag it this long. And, well, Dan van Zutphen, very unfortunate to be off of the back now. But third place, he's still got opportunities.
Yeah.
And we'll have a look at, well, what happened with Hugo.
Yeah, so here, Hugo, that's Dan van Zutphen on the outside. You can see the Lion GP car. This is into Cunningham Corner here, and the battle with Stijn Handgraaf as they were running through Collier. You've got there van Zutphen on the outside. Now, he just gets himself out wide. Oh, and it's move across. He thinks he's got the clearance there, the Lion GP Fenster car, and it doesn't. And so as he moves across, Dan's got his nose basically on that outside, and that is the grey area you've got. You get all clear at 0.9 of a car, basically, that's there to say you can move over. There's a grey area, and Stijn would have got the all clear from his spotter saying you can move over. Dan was there, and ultimately that's why he gets put into the wall. It's very unlucky. I'd even go as far as saying that's a racing incident, because Dan obviously hasn't expected Stijn Handgraaf to basically just come across his nose like that.
Yeah, certainly doesn't. At the same time, though, you have to trust yourself. That's one of the things about sim racing and racing in general. You have to have faith in yourself. Sometimes you can't trust things like your spotters. You have to keep yourself in with your smarts and keep yourself aware at all times. We have another moment just after that one, and well, that was after the Dan Zutphen one, and this was Mika Hoekstra, who was fourth in class. And well, we'll see what happens here. A lot of dust kicked up off into the wall. Was that Dan van Zutphen? And you can see turned around was Hoekstra.
Well, Hoekstra knows that he's got a lot of work to do to keep overall into position. The massive Sudspeed sponsorship there on the side of the car. So ultimately for Mika, he has a massive moment like that, and it does cost as far as it goes, but they're now trying to weed the tyres, and we will be going back to green flag running with what will be just under 36 minutes to go here at Sebring. This has been a stop and start run here today. This is what drivers would consider a scrappy day at the office here at Sebring. It's tough racing here because you can't settle a rhythm, and I think these drivers are getting very aggressive because of that, because they know they're very quickly running out of time and they're very quickly running out of opportunities. Petsy with control. It will then be Lenaway and Teichmann, which is 1, 2, and 3. Green flag back in the air, and we are back underway once again here from Sebring. Immediate moves going on then, about 7 or 8 cars back as the likes of Hoekstra and Van der Rijp look around for their moves. Sotorov looking to go for the race lead in Am over Michael Teichmann around turn 1. Isn't going to get there. Fuqua and Terho are there, and Richie Chauhan, the leader of the Am category now, continuing on in these battles for 3, 4, and 5.
Yes, it certainly is. They'll keep that fighting going, and Antti Terho in this field is trying to make his way through. Ryan Fuqua has confirmed that position, has jumped up to the podium in the pro field, and well, they will continue on. Brian van der Rijp slightly further down. Everybody slightly out of position, of course, because of those pit stops. We're going to be seeing a lot of action for the lead.
And there's Chauhan as well, who's around, and that's a big old contact there for those two. The GT3 Am leader gets in the side of Miroslav Sotorov, who was second in Am, and everybody scattered as they saw those two to the inside. We stay running here at Sebring, but a big old shunt up there for Richie Chauhan and Miroslav Sotorov. Frank Cook making good progress through the field. Also looking around at Michele Velazzi and Oye Hugo here. They are turning around and saying they have just got to try and hold it out. And when some cars stay out and some cars are in, you get this big checkup effect of those who have and those who have not. And you've got to really respect everyone around here. Big lunge in the background there down the inside. Van Zutphen trying to get the run on Hoekstra. Hoekstra covering.
Yeah, covering at the moment, still remain side by side. This looks almost like a race start here as we're about to go 3 wide in these positions. And, well, it's going to be 2 by 2. There goes the dive to the inside from Dorscheit. Can he make his way through? There's still 3 wide. There's contact in the foreground once again. And that is another driver who's had a little bit of contact and has dropped down that order.
It's Herkstra. He was into the rear by Daniel Dorscheit, who was trying to get that move. It promotes Neshev to 4th in class. Herkstra to 5th. Neshev is in position at the moment, and I think the stewards will be going here. That is a modified McLaren from Stefan Jones. No front clip on that at all. It's looking like a massive overhang. It's like looking at a turtle out there. Dorscheit outbreaks himself. There is Callum Jones, the other of the Jones brothers, then is going to be there. Not the Jonas brothers, the Jones brothers, which are there out there at this point. It's very tough racing out there at the moment. You've just got to try and find a bit of calm. There's Cook though. He's trying to pull himself into this position right now. Manatee Racing Pro and understanding where he needs to be. Here's a replay.
We're going to have a look at a replay of Miroslav Sotorov here in the 182 on the outside line, and just about, once again, miscommunication between himself and that was the car on the inside line that just made the contact with him. Was that Antti Terho on that inside line where it was just a little bit of a moment? It was Chawan, and there goes contact, more contact. That's Michele Velazzi dropping down, Kovac dropping down as well, and well, huge slides for the two of them, managing to keep it out of the wall.
Yeah, a lot then to deal with, and that was not great in and around Michele Velazzi. The 07 cars now all together, and it was Italian versus Italian. Kovac on the outside. Hugo had just chucked it down the inside and said, well, you lot sort it out on the outside, basically setting the chain reaction into motion out there, and that's tough. Swaggy's penalty now reinstated out then in this run with almost half an hour left to play. Neshev now going for 3rd. He now gets 2nd down the inside, and Loskatov now trying to bring himself in. There's only 2 hands left out there, and it's the 2 Simit teammates of Loskatov and Sloats.
Certainly is, and Loskatov chasing down for the meantime on Dan van Zutphen, trying to see where he can get through on the 179. Nowhere yet is the answer to that question, but Dan will be wondering where he can just pick up that little bit more time, and Ivan will be wondering where he can seek his opportunity. A little bit of a defensive line from Dan into the first couple of corners on the racetrack, and so the 249 knows that he is in the 179's mind.
Well, I do note that one of the cars that's down in pit lane left the engine running, and I heard the sound of an explosion, which means there is no more engine in whichever car it was. I think it's Camden Crafts out there, which has had that. Loskatov, though, still in class. Swaggy has now come in to serve the penalty, so he drops out of line. You got Van der Rijp in 3rd. You got Vavrovsky in 5th. So those are worth talking about. Lenaway still yet to have a stop. There is Trevor trying to fight with Ryan Fuqua there. The McLaren holding steady, but the inside's there at Collier Corner, and it's a very sleek car in the McLaren versus the more upright Mercedes, which can take the curves a bit better. Around the outside of the Tower Corner along the Flying Fortress straight. Little push out there on Trevor, but he's not giving this one up. He's got the inside for the Bishop's Bend. Now as he'll head to Jean de Bien corner. Here, this fast right-hander on the brakes. Fuqua a little bit better. You can't turn in like that, Trevor. You can't turn in like that, Trevor. And he'll look to that outside, and he can't get the move done. Suddenly, welcome back, Frank Cook.
Yeah, just making his way back into the fight, and the flashes of the headlights signalling exactly what Vavrovsky thinks about this move that he's about to set up, and he moves to the inside for the next corner. Fuqua tries to cover it off, tries to break the momentum of the number 3, but Vavrovsky doesn't care about that. He's going to try and push his way alongside out of the final corner. Can't quite do so. He'll have to make his way through into 1 if he wants to make it here, and he's going to have a look to that inside. Another peek to the inside for a car a couple of positions back. That will be Oya Hugo who will have a look there, but no doing just yet for any of these drivers. But is there a chance now to the inside for Vavrovsky? Yes, there is, but has he braked himself? No, and that will be Ryan Fuqua, who just, I think, gets on the throttle a bit too early. Big bit of contact on the rear. He's just jumped back on the car, that part. But what has happened is he's dropped down and is now fighting for 9th overall.
Well, Ryan Fuqua there was in no man's land, just tried to cut back and take a line, and I don't think was really realising that Oye Hugo was going to be soireeing down to the inside. So it's a massive hit for Ryan. Hyperion have had a horrible day at the office today. Now Alessandro Torchio is looking to try and get through at the Fangio S's, and now we'll look around and see Johan Neshev. They're just behind as well. Here's the big slam onto the brakes here into Cunningham Corner. So they've still got to sort this out between them here, and it might have to be all the way to Tower, where the inside is Fuqua's out there at this point on the brakes and run through. That incident, by the way, at turn at turn 3, under review at this point in time. So again, stewards are going to be going long into the night, I think, with this one. Let's take another look.
Say the stewards will be having a look at everything all the way through until next race, as here is a look on the rear view of Trevor Vavrovsky, and it's just, yeah, that might be contact actually with the 79 behind of Frank Kirk, which has just seen Fuqua with a slide.
I don't think it was. That was Hugo down the inside that forced the contact. Kirk was well out of it, and he was just watching that one in slow motion going, ooh, places, I'll have those, as that goes. Dan van Zutphen then in third, still looking to try and get back into second position if he can in class against the championship leaders. In comes the race leader, so now this will be for the Pro-Am lead then. Into the pits comes Michael Teichmann.
Yeah, into the pits indeed for Teichmann, and we'll see what our former Pro-Am leader is going to do. It's out in 5th, and, well, it's going to be out of the pit lane further down than 5th. This is Dorscheit in this 5th place in the fight with Seyfarth and Kovac for the podium positions now. This has been promoted to the fight for those. The podium positions in class, they're 3.4 off of Dan van Zutphen and Johan Neshev, and this will be for third place. The 166, the 195 and the 141.
Yeah, so Daniel Dorscheit now has damage, but on the rear of his car, Corbin Lenaway and Davide Pezzi, they're clear at the front of this field, but they're together trying to work to build their margin. Remember, they haven't made any of their stops. Nick Davis, by the way, 10-second stop and hold penalty for him, so he's going to have to come in and serve that in addition to his stops in the race, but I'd assume he's in the same boat out there as the likes then of Trevor Vavrovsky, that both are already out of the way. Corbin Lenaway will be looking at this thinking, I look around and think, where do I need to go and find that chance to say I am going to get what I need on this pass? If anything, I think Lenaway will be thinking at Davide Pezzi, if I make the move, I'm doing it for track position to get an easy pit stop.
Yeah, I think that's the concern at the moment for Lenaway. Pezzi has been quicker throughout the course of the race, but Lenaway over the recent few laps has been able to eke that gap back down, and has been able to really become the faster of the two drivers in the 6, chasing through onto the 70. But yeah, as you say, both into the lane.
So they'll both look to make their pit stops here, and they will be handing the lead back to Ryan von der Grijp out there in this run, and will understand that Ryan here is trying to go as long as he can then before the end of this race. Cook with the fastest lap. It promotes Vavrovsky up to second, and Oye Hugo is then in third. But remember, Hugo is under investigation from the stewarding team. There is a lot of penalties to keep in mind. I note that this is only a GT Open out there. I will note that the last round of the Sports Car Championship, which was a 4-hour race, mind you, Joseph, had 48 separate incidents looked at. GTO, which has been a 25-minute race and an hour and 5-minute race, is already on 43.
It certainly is. That can happen, though, when you are having so much drama like we have had in this race. That can happen when you have the shorter sprints, when you have the shorter races, and you're racing against the same people who you are expecting to be a little bit more patient, and because, of course, usually they're racing in something that's around 4 hours, as you say. So it's a little bit of a culture shock, and they had to adapt straight away from going from the sprint race to the endurance race. So a little bit of a change of mentality can sometimes be difficult to adapt. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so much here today in the way of incidents.
Oye Hugo now looking for second against Trevor Vavrovsky here. This will be an important pass for Oye Hugo's confidence. He's had to go from the back of the field with a qualifying ban to get himself up through the order, avoiding all of the dramas of the first 25 minutes and getting himself involved. In fact, to correct myself, he was involved in the lap 1 incident then of the of the sprint. That's what put him back in the order, and he's been having to fight back ever since then as he looks around and thinks, well, the one driver I've got to try and keep in check isn't Trevor Vavrovsky, it's Ryan von der Rijp out there, but Vavrovsky on strategy is in a very, very strong position right now compared to everybody else in this field. Into turn 1, they will go off of concrete, back to asphalt, and now focus on what will be only their 18th lap of this race.
It's only the 18th lap, as you say, and we've got 23 minutes to go, so it's flown by, and well, most of it under caution, but hopefully we'll be able to get the rest of our racing going, and hopefully we'll be able to get everything under green flag conditions for the remainder of this one. Oye Hugo going for second place on Vavrovsky in class, of course, can't quite make his way through, so will seek the opportunities on the exits of each of the corners, and I think that's where his car is going to have a little bit more benefit. The Mercedes, with that little bit of BOP, is going to come into effect now. I think it's got more in terms of the way of ballast than the Aston Martin behind.
And we're getting word that there is a car down in pit lane. It's the 25. It had the wrong number to start with. It's car 112 of Wesley Lewin. And they have officially been disqualified from the race for their contact that basically they should have slowed down a lot more than they did for the full course yellow and caused that massive incident which caught up Nick Davis, the teammate here of Trevor Vavrovsky. So disqualification for Wesley Lewin here in this one. Was 5 laps down and out of the race anyway, but for purposes will not get any points from today's running here in the SimRacing Republic GT Open. Vavrovsky with Oye Hugo behind. He's managed to mark him. Frank Cook trying to close down in on this as well, and Frank is having a really good run today as he is trying to keep this race into a position where they can go through. Now, here's the other port of call that, or point of order that needs to be talked about. It is a case of you've got to get your stops in, and critically out there, Joseph, you have to do it before 5 minutes to go. You can't go last corner, go in and do a 98 Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, you can't exactly do a very extreme splash and dash at the end, so they're going to be doing their pit stops before then, and well, that's if they don't forget. Some may well forget. It's something that's easy to do, but of course they won't be able to. It won't be in at the rules and regs that they will have the chance to do that, so they will be making those pit stops before 5 minutes left to go if they have any sense. There's only 2 cars left in the GT3 Anfield. It's Loskatov who leads Schlutz at this point in time, and they are going to be fighting it out very hard for position. Roberto Stefano Kovac is going to be in behind them, as I believe that's a car a lap down who's just waiting in behind and is just sitting in position at this point in time. As there's Schlutz on board right behind Loskatov, and in fact that's a car in front of them that they're going to be chasing through, and hoping that they're going to be able to be dragged by them and maybe get higher positions on track, even if it counts for nothing in the championship.
Well, it will count for something because they are fighting in overall at the moment, and it will give a gap here for the likes then of Ivan Loskatov to Luke Sloats. They walked into today 20 points. The difference, Sloats, by the way, will be looking around at Ivan Loskatov and thinking, well, if I've dropped points by a potential penalty in the first race, that is going to be tough. He already had a 5-second penalty, actually, for leaving an unnecessarily large gap off the grid of the sprint, which is going to be worth talking about out there. So he'd already had points which will take him out, so we can now confirm that it will be a case of he won't get what he needs. Kevin Maillard, I think, is going to be sprint champion for AM, and he will do. So Kevin Maillard is going to be the AM sprint champion then in this series. And so you look around at it and go, well, that's 5 seconds. There's Vavrovsky. He's just lost the place to Oye Hugo. So that's the pass done for second. And that was a case of needing to make that happen. Into Sunset Bend was a nice buzz. But as far as this goes, Sloat's on the back foot. And it's Loskatov who's the one who's going to be clawing in. And they could have next to nothing between them here, Joseph, heading to Silverstone next month.
Certainly could, and what a championship finale that would set up around the circuit in Northamptonshire. We will see the GT3 AMS come to a close in very, very sensational style, I'm sure, and that would be very, very huge. Of course, still close championship in the Pro, and in the Pro-Am, Neshev, our championship leader, leads the way despite a sprint race that did not go his way. He started from the very back of this field. He's made his way up to 7th overall, which is of course the leader in class, and that demonstrates the performances that he can put on. That is exactly why he finds himself in the lead of the championship, and that is exactly why he could be the champion-elect. You mentioned earlier on somebody could have 9 fingers on the trophy. Neshev could be pretty similar.
Well, seeing as he leads, he'll be happy, but he'll also need to look at race control and hope that he's fading anything late on in the run. There might be a lot of post-race penalties that will change the overall outcome, and we will address those at Silverstone if we don't get them before the close of play on this broadcast. Cook close, looking for the inside here at the corner of 1004 line. Sunset Bend and corner line number 1. For those who know, is Armbar out there, as he will now look to try and find himself a chance to go by Vavrovsky. Ultimately, he doesn't quite have enough of a run at the moment. It's Mercedes versus Mercedes, and look at the level they're pushing. Oye Hugo setting a fastest lap in front. When you got that as a tow in front of you, you're very good at being able to hold the place. So Vavrovsky having the luxury of the fastest car in the field right now, directly in front.
Does at the moment, and they're going to try and drag themselves through and try and remain in with the chase at this point in time, and then maybe later on Hugo pushes too hard and then they can make their way back into contention. 1.2 seconds splits these 3 drivers, so they are not too shabby either pace wise, and they'll try and continue their chase on with that with the car that it's in 2nd place, and might be chasing down on Ryan van der Grijk. Dan van Zutphen then under pressure here, and this is where the GT3 AMS are trying to make the move. This is still for position.
It is, and you've got to remember that while it is for position out there, when you look at what is going on here for Loskatov at the moment, Dan van Zutphen here is 8th in this race and 2nd overall in his category. So the AMS are currently 9th and 10th in this field, with only right now a full 24 cars, or now 23 running, because Nick Davis has just retired the car then from the race. So that is the American done in the GT Dynamics, then number 2. And so there will be more to look at then as far as this race will go for the final stages. But we've lost over a third of the field as they've looked to try and set themselves up. It has been that sort of a day, an attritional day at Sebring, and maybe the heat starting to cloud a bit of judgment then from some of the drivers over the course of this run. Not on track, but typically you do here around this place. 22 degrees right now, I would say, is warm out there at the moment on an air temperature. Frank Cook close, but close isn't going to cut the mustard if he wants to get himself up to 3rd. In comes Kovac then to start the 2nd round of stops.
Yeah, he is into the box in the GT3 Pro-Am field from 4th place, and we'll see where he stacks up. That will be most likely the end of the pit stops for himself. Just having a look at the drivers who've been in twice. Of course, this is not gospel in terms of who's going to come in like no more times in this race, but Vavrovsky has done twice, as now he's almost been done by Cook on the inside line. Vavrovsky just about holds on. He braked later into the corner, which meant that he could get the turn in, and then the inside line for the next corner, which meant that the number 3 could put his car in a good position just to hold on to it. But he's done 2 pit stops here today, and I think there'll be part of him that might think he can stretch it to the end.
call deadline passes then on the safety car at 15 minutes to go, and any search that you're trying to get late on in the racing is going to be difficult. Wide off the exit though of Tower Corner, this is going to give Cook a good run here along the straight. He will look around then through this small flick left of Bishop over towards Jean de Bienne. He's got the inside, he lunges down for it, he gets contact though. Vavrovsky was trying to get the run off at the exit of the corner there. He was trying to pick up a good run, and ultimately planted in the middle of the road was Freight Cook, who barges his way up into third place.
Yeah, he does, and well, that's a way to make your way through. There's been pretty aggressive racing today, and Cook just about keeping it on the line. Vavrovsky looking to the inside, and he's going to try and give it a go. This move is not done, you're absolutely right, and they will come down to the start-finish straight. Locked in battle. Vavrovsky, can he get the exit out of the corner? It looks like Cook's got the straight line speed, he's got the momentum, and he holds on to the position in the end as Vavrovsky big bump of the wall.
Yeah, he tagged the wall on the right-hand side. That was a problem about 3 or 4 years ago when drivers do that. They've learned to get quite close to it, but Trevor there just tagging the wall. It's cost him about 1/10.5 of a second there, and Vavrovsky able to fight another day. But look at what that battling has done. Suddenly, car 75 directly behind him, Michele Velazzi.
Yeah, he certainly is. That opens up the door to another driver in this fight, as of course the way that they've been aggressively having a go at each other means that they've both been losing time, and Velazzi can fight in this battle. He can live in the fight for third place, and his hopes for a podium are still alive with 13 minutes to go. Corbin Lenaway chasing Davide Pezzi. He has been for a while. They both came into the pit lane together, and the Impact Sim Sport number 6 wants to make his way through on the driver in 7th place in class and finally get rid of that rear view, that rear wing, which he's been sitting in the rear view mirrors of for a very long time.
Corbin Lenaway trying to find this move, and he knows how critical it is for him to get up in class. They both came in at exactly the same time for their first stops. They are 13th and 14th overall at the moment. They are currently 7th and 8th in class, and this will be, I think, for both of these drivers, a resignation of seasons of what might have been, and getting word now that car 183 is going to also get disqualified then from this race, which is Yulian Dimitrov, who was running still, but few laps down. So Yulian Dimitrov gets done for speeding under full course yellow and not slowing for the safety car until called 12 seconds later. So as they look at it, they say absolutely zero tolerance for full course yellows. So that's critical in terms of what they've got. In comes Neshev for his final stop of the race.
Yeah, Neshev in, as is Dorshai in first and third, or what was first and third in the class. Now Dan has... Sorry?
That's a third stop for Trevor Vavrovsky. He's down in the lane. He couldn't make it on fuel.
Yeah, well, that's... I mean, I was personally expecting Vavrovsky to come in again, but you're absolutely right. He is in, and he is in now 6th place as he comes out of the lane. He might be dropping down even further behind these two drivers, Davide Pezzi, and it will be, yeah, Lenaway, both coming out in behind. 2.4 the gap between them. So these two just keep focus on each other.
Yep, so a lot still to discover here with 10.5 minutes to go. It's about how late you want to leave it. For drivers out there, this is a perfect moment for Freight Cook, and how long the final stop's going to be for Oye Hugo, for Ryan van der Rijt. They'll all be looking at how late they want to get that stop in, and whether you want a bit of clean air to go out to attack, to be aggressive. Luke Slotes, for example, another driver who has come in and made that pit stop, and it will be splashes and dashes to get yourself home and dry. You only need to take a litre, basically, to get yourself home. Looking back then from this wonderful camera angle here, from the rear diffuser here, Davide Pezzi, if you put a camera like that there in the real world, you'd expect it to be torched by the end of the race with the heat that comes out of that.
Certainly could, and you can see the fumes off the exhaust as you go, and well, perfect camera angle to see Davide Pezzi defending from Corbin Lenaway. Lenaway getting as close as he possibly can to the back of the 70s. Our race leader is into the pit lane, as is 2nd place.
So Oye Hugo into the pits. They can't risk going much longer. Freight Cook in. Michele Velazzi, Alessandro Torchio, they're all in. They're all making those stops. Keep an eye on Trevor Vavrosky. He's the car that hasn't needed to make a stop. Van der Rijp should be the one who comes back out and away in the race lead here after all stops are concluded. Long holds then in the lane. Van der Rijp now gets the drive. He'll leave pit lane first and he will be back in the race lead and maintain it, and he'll realise that he's only got 9 minutes to drive to secure his title. Oye Hugo second. Velazzi and Cook together on circuit. Thomas Seyfarth goes through. Now look on that inside, because there is going to be Trevor Vavrosky side by side with Freight Cook coming over towards turn 3. Has he got the podium? Yes, sir!
Certainly does. Vavrosky, podium position for himself. Cook will want to make his way back through. He will try to find his way through on the 3. We'll give him a bit of a flash just to try and put him off that little bit. And it will be to the inside line. Once again, here we go. Cook on the inside of Vavrosky. He'll be later on the brakes, which means he can be earlier on the throttle, can Vavrosky. But no, Cook confirms the position and he retakes it.
Yes, but remember, you got Cunningham Corner. Trevor could go and attack that big defensive block thrown then up into Cunningham Corner. They've got to be careful of this here because they've allowed Michele Velazzi into this. And just behind them is I would say the figures of Corbin Lenaway and Davide Pezzi. I think they've got one more stop to make here in this race, but they are also in the factor at this moment. Out onto the Flying Fortress straight they will go. Cook is holding himself then very well in third. He's driven wonderfully today here at Sebring, but into Jean de Bienne they go again. He just needs to stretch his legs and find a way to run away, and maybe even Thomas Seyfarth, who's due for one final stop, could be a factor at the dying embers of this race.
Certainly could. He'll be hoping to be a factor at the very least. And, wow, this will be very, very close indeed. Velazzi will be in there. And, of course, Seyfarth will want to hold on to what could be this third place overall very, very temporarily, because, of course, he has to come into the pit lane. And he's only got one more lap in order to do so.
Well, the question is, does he? Because if he doesn't, then he's obviously made his 2 stops. It's been so crazy. We haven't quite got the hold on who's made how many stops here today. And Seyfarth is only 5 seconds clear of Johan Neshev, who's currently in second with a lot of damage to the rear of his Lamborghini. There is no rear clip on the NJB Lambo out there at the moment, and Cook will know it, and Vavrosky will know it, and so will Velazzi and Lenaway and Pezzi. This is the cork in the bottle they did not want with 6 3/4 minutes to go.
No, certainly not, because it's going to slow them up, they'll feel. Because, of course, Seyfarth will be very, very, very far into the stint. He won't feel as fresh as he could be. And, well, we will see where they stack up. Cook ahead of Vavrosky, ahead of Velazzi, and Lenaway and Pezzi joining the fight. They might even invite Alessandro Torchio into it late on. He's only 2.2 seconds back. So the GT3 Pro field for the final spot in this podium, this action is going to light up.
It's not just for the podium in Pro, it's for the podium overall. Seyfarth with a wiggle through the middle of the corner. That's going to open up the door. Freight Cook's going to get the run. Now Vavrosky's going to have to go the long way around the Bishop's Bend here to go and get this pass. And he's going to have to dive at Jean de Bienne to get it here. He's better on the brakes down the inside. Thank you. Another one goes. Seyfarth will now look and see Michele Velazzi wanting to pick up a run here off the exit here of the right of Le Mans. And now needing the drive, looking at Lenaway, looking at Pezzi, and understanding here that Thomas Seyfarth is the last thing you want in the middle of this group. To Sunset Bend goes then Michele Velazzi, using the power of that Mustang to get to the inside and clears.
Yeah, he clears him, and Thomas Seyfarth now dropping down another position to Lenaway, maybe dropping down another one to Pezzi as they come onto the exit of the corner. He doesn't duck into the pit lane, and so Pezzi will have to make this move rather than the move being handed to him. But yeah, he stays ahead for the time being, does Seyfarth, and he moves on to another lap. So this will push Pezzi a little bit further off the back of this group as he finally might make his way through on the outside. But Seyfarth looks like he's trying to hold on to this one, and he will hold on to the position with Pezzi taking a bit of gravel.
Pit window closes then. Drivers cannot take a mandatory stop from this point, and look at how it's cleared for Thomas Seyfarth. They've all got through, and suddenly Johan Neshev's only 2 seconds away here in Pro-Am. This is going to be a very long hold. This will be a long 5 minutes for him here in this race for the lead of Pro-Am. You look over at Corbin Lenaway here. He will be eyeing up Michele Velazzi late. Obviously, his 2 stops will feel done. If they're not, he'll be looked at by race control here in the late stages of this going. He will also note here the likes of Vavrovsky and Cook, who are there. Cook off into the distance, but at the risk of, 10 seconds off of the overall race leader. This is for a podium, and he is stretching those legs, and nobody's really able to hold.
No, not at the moment. Really not at the moment. And he's trying to extend that gap to over a second. That's the crucial amount, because that shows that he has broken free at the moment. It's just dipped under. It's about 9/10 of a second. And so he's really going to give it a go and push over the next couple of minutes, because this lap could be what decides and what confirms that 3rd place in position. And of course helps him in the championship as well. Velazzi on the back of Vavrovsky, going to try and maybe make a move onto that 4th place. Of course, it won't be onto the podium, but it will be particularly close for the 75. He's going to try and give it a proper go. Lenaway not too far off either. He's gained 4 off of his position at the start, so he's done well, but he wants more gains. Oya Hugo, who's gained 12 since this race began, and that is absolutely sensational for himself. And he's taking at the moment what looks to be a very deserved P2.
Yeah, he's doing a very good job at the moment. Here is Oye Hugo. He will also note as well that he has been in a position where he's got to be a bit worried about how this one has been running out with the stewards. He knows that he'll have to wait for the race to be then into position late, where he notes whether there's going to be enough to deal with or not. Michele Velazzi here in 5th position, still dealing with Corbin Lenaway with 2:37 on the clock. Gap in Pro-Am is 1 second.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. At the moment for those positions, it's very, very close indeed at the top. Thomas Seyfarth, who tried to go long in the stint, has Alessandro Torchio for company behind. Johan Neshev hoping to make the move on Torchio very soon, and time is running out for his chase to be late on in taking that victory. Torchio sits between the two. Seyfarth has that position and has currently that car in between. The 73 will be crucial in the fight.
It will do, and it will be really critical to know how this is going to be held. So as they go, Master Races, we note they have just taken the rule. There's been changes to the rule book, so I don't think they are on 2 mandatory pit stops. There is a spinner, though, in front, and that is going to be critical for Corbin Lenaway. He couldn't have afforded that spin. It's a half spin there only, and it is going to cost him a lot of time out there in a handful of places. Late on, Torchio straight to the inside, and Thomas Seyfarth then is going to lose out. So Neshev now moving on to what will be the final lap of this race. Will have direct line eye of sight here against Thomas Seyfarth. So now on this final lap, are you able to hold yourself to account and keep this one sorted? We know the Masters crown in Pro-Am is in Neshev's hands, but if Neshev can get this through, he will be champion of Pro-Am here with a round safe, because he knows that Dan is only there in 3rd. He'll also look at the stewards and hope it's not the case that he gets more penalty at the end of this race. Herkstra is in 8th place and absolutely nowhere. Sven Beber did not turn up for this round today, and he is trying to desperately find this path. Defensive then by Seyfarth. It will be to the outside of the hotel hairpin. There's a lunge down the inside as well. There's contact there, and suddenly Neshev's having to defend here because Corbin Lenaway is going to try and find a way straight back, and that's not what you want when you've got a Pro-Am battle going on to the end of this race. Lenaway doesn't care. He's just racing right now to hope that he can get closer. He'll lift off of it into Cunningham Corner. Thomas Seyfarth may have just had his blushes spared here on the final lap of this race, but it's still 0.4 of a second. Wide goes Corbin Lenaway. He's off the back of this group now, here into the final stages. By comparison, heading onto the Almond Straight is Ryan van der Grijp. It's not often that you get to say you can get things done at the double, but he knows he's sprint champion. He knows that the Masters crown, nobody's going to touch him. In overall, he gives himself the best platform possible, heading over to Silverstone as the sun sets at Sunset Bend. Ryan van der Grijp is going to be walking towards the title scene. He's Master and Sprint champion, and he's dominant at the double here at Sebring.
Absolutely. Ryan van der Grijp
Oh,
has dominated this race, and we've still got to fight for the race lead in the Pro-Am class. It's going to be right to the line between Seyfarth and Neshev. Who's going to be able to take it as they come right to the line? It's going to be the momentum for Seyfarth, and he will take the victory in the Pro-Ams. Neshev misses out by less than 0.5 of a second. That was tight. Van Zutphen will round out that podium there. Loskutov will beat Schlutz in the AMS. And that was certainly a great way to end off the action here today.
What a day's worth of running, and it's still not going to be over because the shooting team have a lot to figure out. Then at the end of proceedings, Loskutov will take his result, but the day is Ryan van der Grijp's here. He was simply put uncatchable out there at the front. A win by 7.6 over Oye Hugo, with Frank Cook then in second position, in third position, and Trevor Varosky in fourth. Michele Velazzi will be fifth ahead of Davide Petti, with Alessandro Torchio seventh, Corbin Lenaway in eighth place, with Ryan Fuqua ninth, and Nors Zwagi rounding out your top 10. We will look over to 11th, where Nick Davis would effectively retire his car. Antti Terho caught out in an instant. Stein Handgraf as well, a retiree, along with Marcelo Caserta, Dylan Platt, and Camden Kraft. Over to Joseph Black, taking a look at Pro-Ams.
Yeah, Pro-Am standings. In the end, the split between the top two, 0.049. Thomas Seyfarth just holding on with the gambled one-stop strategy ahead of Johan Neshev. Dan Van Zutphen will take third place, and Daniel Dorscheit will be in fourth. Roberto Stefano Kovac, Michael Teichmann, and Stefan Jones, the only drivers to finish on the lead lap of the GT3 Pro-Ams. Mika Hoekstra will be one lap down, as will Callum Jones, and Miroslav Sotorov will round out the top 10 in that field, 2 laps down on the leader. Then you've got your DNFs, Marvin Baer, Julian Dimitrov, and Wesley Lewin.
We note that those two at the back there have both been disqualified from this race, so that will put them down to the bottom of the order in GT3 AM. Just the two finishers, as Ivan Loskutov and Luke Sloat, should be 1 and 2, which confirms then as the AM champion then of the Masters field, it will be Luke Sloat who will have that role and responsibility, as Kevin Maillard would be a non-finisher, as would Richie Chauhan then in this race. Loskutov too far back to make anything of that, but he does still close in overall, heading into more running out there. We are going to get this chance to talk to some of our drivers. Joining me right now, a winner in sprint, a winner in master, a champion in sprint, and a champion in master. Ryan van der Grijp here with us now. Ryan, it always feels good when you get not 1 but 2 championships in under the belt.
Yeah, it does feel good. Just went on with my race, took it race by race, and happy to have the result in.
A very tough day in terms of trying to get momentum sorted. It was a busy one out there, with a number of high-profile incidents taking its place. How do you, as a driver in this situation, go to your wealth of sim racing experience to understand, you know, how to stay in the rhythm of a very choppy race that we saw today?
Well, how do I understand how to stay in my rhythm? Well, it's just as simple as that. I just got to focus on staying in my rhythm, and that's all I did, really.
It's a simple job for you. You walked in as championship leader. You got 2 championships done. You will now extend your margin in pro overall over Oye, Hugo, Norzwagi and the like. So you've got Silverstone coming up next month. Are you looking at sweeping the pro standings?
Well, of course, I'm gonna do the best I can to get that as well.
That confidence is very much on key to show. Ryan von der Rijp will get the results he wants in the books. A big thumbs up will indicate that that is exactly what was needed. Joseph Black has walked down the virtual paddock. He's with your GT3 Pro-Am Sprint champion, Dan van Zutphen.
Yeah, and of course, welcome in, Dan. And of course, you are the sprint champion, but a mix of emotions throughout the course of that weekend. Just talk me through it.
Well, a mix of emotions through the whole championship so far, really. But to answer your question, yes, really happy with the sprint championship. Did not see it coming at all. With a staggering of 2 hours of practice. Really happy, must say as well. My teammate Marvin Barr got, I think, his first podium. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to the ones in AMs and pros who's won. But mixed emotions, but satisfied overall.
It certainly was. And you ended up, of course, on that podium. And, well, we've got one more race of the season in Silverstone.
Yep.
Just, I mean, what's that one going to look like for you, do you think?
Very hard practiced and very hard motivation to win. Let's see what we can do overall. I mean, I had a bit of a disappointment in Road Atlanta because, well, I finished P3, but arguably should have been higher there. So really motivated to do very well in the last phase of the season.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a very, very good race if this one is anything to go by. So thank you very much, Dan, for joining us in the box. And, well, congratulations on your podium.
Thank you for the stream.
Well, you get a real sense of what drivers are all capable of out there. A victory in the master race then for Ivan Loskatov, who's here with me right now. Ivan, ultimately, the pace was certainly there today. You found victory in the sprint. You found yourself then with victory in the master, but no championships in those regards to go in your back pocket. But critically for you, a lot of points gained in the battle for the overall. Well, we hope.
No, I mean,
there we go.
Yeah. Hello, guys. I mean, for me, that's not a big problem. I know Luke, and we talk about this before the race. So I'm pretty happy with that I have.
So the responsibility of today is just trying to keep yourself out of trouble. There were instances left, right, and centre. I think it shows that you've got an 11th place finish here in the master race, how difficult the racing was today. How much avoidance did you have to do looking around at everybody getting into trouble around you?
Yeah, I have a lot of incidents that I have to avoid. And as you said, I have 11 penalty points, so I need to keep it clean. And the race was quite hard for me, yeah, because of the traffic. Like, the track is tiny, and when you have a lot of cars in front of you, you need to be patient. Yeah. So yeah, that was a hard race for me.
A very hard race, but one that has now given you a wonderful platform to battle against your teammate heading over towards the final round of the championship at Silverstone. Do you believe that when it comes to the practice between you and your teammate, do you feel like as you walk into practice right now that you've got maybe the edge of momentum on your side?
I think the second option, like, we will fight. We both talk about it, as I said. We will fight between each other, but not that hard, because we still are teammates. Like, I will not do the Rosberg moves.
Well, it is refreshing to hear that. Ivan Loskatov, then joining us and picking up the victory here in the Master race and saying, look, that was everything that was wanted and then some. We will now take this moment to bring the curtains down here from Sebring. A lot still to go on to into the afternoon and even the evening as well for the stewarding team, but a massive thanks to the team who has brought this show over to you today. From Joseph Black alongside me, Christian Deploy in the director's chair, and Dougie Beard, who is on cameras. Your final round of the championship then here as part of a Genesis Extreme production will be taking place on April 12th. It will be 2:15 UTC, 9:15 AM Eastern for that one. And Silverstone, some say the home of racing in Formula Spec. That's going to be a very, very important battleground to see who will come out on top with just one endurance round left in the championship. As far as racing action will continue on here on the Global SimRacing Channel, we are just about 35 minutes away from racing the Classic Lotus Grand Prix Series on Sunday. The Triple Crown is on for Aldrius Valenteas. Will he be able to convert here for what is his fourth attempt, looking for his second Triple Crown over at VIR? The Porsche's Owners Club will be taking on Adelaide on Monday night / Tuesday morning, wherever you are in the world, and on Wednesday night / Thursday morning, wherever you are in the world, over on Porsche's YouTube channels and Twitch streams. You can catch the second round of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup North America taking place from Miami. On Thursday, there will be more Skip Barber Racing School action. That will be taking off at Donington Park over at 6:15. So that will be aggressive, and you'll definitely want to tune in and jump in for all of that. There are tears, there are fears, there are smiles and surprises around for many various categories out there. Overall will be, as things stand, in the pocket of Johan Neshev as Pro-Am champion, but we will wait to confirm that for you over in April before we have the full picture. What we do know is the Sprint Crown is done van Zutphens in Pro-Am, and of course the Master Crown with Johan Neshev in Pro-Am. In Am, it is 1 versus 1 left as they sort out overall. It will be a battle of two teammates. It will be Sloats versus Loskotov for them, and they are expecting a clean fight between the pair as they go to the final round of the championship. Sloats will take the honours in the Masters, but in the sprint, it will go the way of Kevin Maillard. And then it's the story of Car 78, just dominating here today, getting a must-win result out of 2 straight races. Everybody watch out, because this is the field that everyone doesn't want to deal with that 78 car in front. Everybody watch out for Ryan van der Rijp.
This is iRacing.